Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us to lead, learn, and laugh. I'm Michael Bull, your host to the world of commercial real estate. Thanks for being with us today. Well, we have a real treat for you on the show today. We're going to talk about the top 10 issues affecting commercial real estate or real estate in general from the CRE Council. Please welcome my guest, Hugh Kelly. He's a PhD. He's a CRE. He's also a professor at real estate at NYU. Hugh, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Michael. Thanks for having me back.
Well, we appreciate you being here in Studio One today. And Hugh, to get us started, tell us about this report that you guys put together. How is this put together?
This is one of the most interesting things we do at the council. Is we have a group called the External Affairs Committee, and their job is to think beyond the real estate industry, to see how the economy and politics and social trends are affecting our industry, because real estate functions to service all of those things, and so they each year research and debate and discuss a whole variety of issues, and then once they've winnowed them down and researched them a bit, they bring them to our national meeting and present them to the delegates that come to that, and then we actually vote on the issues that are proposed, and the ones that have the top 10 rating are selected, and then they are put in order actually by vote of the attendees at the councilors' national meetings.
And tell us about the councilors briefly.
Sure. The Councilors of Real Estate is a small organization in a sense. There are 1,100 people worldwide. It's by invitation only. You have to be a very senior person with 10 years of experience in your organization and be recognized in your local market as a thought leader. So we have this network around the world. It is an organization that has accountants, it has lawyers, it has developers, it has brokers, it has appraisers, it has all of the disciplines that affect real estate. So it's a chance for people who are at the top of their game to come and speak with one another across their disciplines. So instead of all of the appraisers and all of the investment bankers and all of the developers going to their own respective organizations, here's a place where they can get out of their silos and begin to talk about the industry as a whole.
That's great. And before we get to the top 10, also, can you tell us about NYU and the real estate there?
Well, NYU and the Shack Institute of Real Estate goes back now about 40 years. Actually, a very prominent New York developer, Larry Silverstein, did the initial funding for it. Since 1988, we've had a master's degree program in real estate. We actually now have 3 of them in real estate finance and investment, in construction management, and in development. We have, at any given time, about 700 students pursuing their master's degrees. Wow. And I'm very happy, and this is a sign that the real estate industry has bounced back, that every single one of our graduates last May walked into a job.
That's great. And some of these folks are going all over the world for jobs, right?
There is no question about it. About 25% of our student body now is international. About 40% of the international students are women. And they come from the Far East, from Japan, from China, from Korea, from India. They come from Eastern Europe. They come from the Middle East. And so we're really, really pleased. From Latin America. Yeah. From Latin America, many students coming up from Brazil and Argentina and Venezuela. So we're really pleased.
Women in real estate. What's this world coming to? I tell you. I'm just kidding, ladies that are in my office and real successful.
That's true. But I will tell you that these women that are coming to get a master's degree in either finance or development are not going to be house brokers.
That's right.
They are going out and they're going to make their mark on the world.
That's right. All right. Well, let's get to the top 10, and we're going to do this backwards. We're going to do the David Letterman style here and start with number 10. And number 10 is agriculture. right?
Yeah, it is. I'm very proud to say I think I teach the only unit on agriculture in NYU's master's program. But it's so important. About 920 million acres of the United States, 45% of our land mass is given to agriculture. It's a net export industry. We feed the world. It brings capital. And as the U.S. population grows and as the world population grows, our agricultural productivity is essential to the viability of society. And so it really does impact real estate. And, it's, in the meantime, providing great returns to investors. Last year, the NCREIF Farmland Index had a total return of above 17%. So that's a pretty good total return for dirt.
Yeah, that is, and it's a big part of the GDP, isn't it?
It is. It's about $750 billion of output directly. But then when you think of all of the transportation that goes into bringing products to market, when you think about all of the science that goes into agribusiness, the multiplier effect is very large.
Right, and it's only going to grow, right? I mean, the population around the world and the U.S. is growing, right?
Well, yeah, we're thinking that we're going to be growing from now about 318 million people in the U.S., another 100 million by 2050. World population, we're at about 7 billion. We'll be 9 billion, and most of those people around the world are going to live in cities. If you do the math now, about 50% of the 7 billion live in cities. That's 3.5 billion people. But by 2050, the UN projects that about 75% of the 9 billion are going to be in cities. That's nearly 7 billion people. So the population of cities is going to double around the world. But cities grow no agriculture.
Right,
so we're going to need to feed those urban dwellers.
Right. So agriculture business is going to grow and all over the country, not just in Colorado where they're growing weeds, right?
That's true. And it interfaces with some of the other issues. The thing about this year's list of issues is that they're all connected to each other. You can't talk about agriculture without talking about water, for example. Mm-hmm. You can't talk about agriculture without talking about globalization. So they all do connect to one another.
And let's talk about number 9, manufacturing. And manufacturing, I guess, is coming back to the U.S. In a little bit, right? Is you starting to see more of that?
Well, yes. There's and there are 2 reasons for that, possibly 3. Mm-hmm. One is that onshoring is a reversal of the offshoring. It turns out that it is very difficult to manage things on a worldwide basis, that this is still the largest and most robust, the wealthiest market in the country, so it makes sense to bring production close to the market. So you see things like BMW and Mercedes and Honda and Nissan and Toyota all having automobile plants right here in the States, right? And that's because the market is here. So that's one element. The second thing is that with the cost of transportation being what it is, and even though we're going to produce more energy here in the States, oil prices are now well above $100 a barrel. It's costly to ship things, so if you can bring things closer to market, that's a cost savings for people. The third thing is that short-run manufacturing is becoming more and more important. And so the development of technologies like 3D printing, I think, is a real game changer for our manufacturers.
And we're in the beginning stages there, right? And how that might affect the industry and commercial real estate.
It really is, and you see it in all sorts of things. In New York City, we have a school called the Fashion Institute of Technology, and you think of it just as a garment industry design thing, but they design everything. It really, the emphasis should be on technology rather than on fashion in that sense. So they've got a whole array of 3D printers in which their students and their faculty build prototypes, and companies come to see what what's there and use these prototypes and the 3D printers in order to bring specialized products to market. So short-run manufacturing, both in fashion and in other harder kinds of goods, is just at the beginning of its upward trajectory, I think.
In one sentence, what does more manufacturing in the U.S. do for our economy and real estate here?
Well, I think it changes the nature of manufacturing to a degree. When you're talking about short-run production with 3D printing, you're not talking about large behemoth factories, but very small areas. So it's going to affect industrial parks, for example. It means that goods are going to be produced close to the point of sale for retailers. I think it has a tremendous impact.
All right, more on the top 10 issues affecting real estate. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by your friends at Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, visit bullrealty.com or call 800-408-BULL. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. Today we're talking about the top 10 issues affecting commercial real estate. We have Hugh Kelly, CRE Chairman, with us here in Studio 1 today, and we're down to number 8 on our countdown, and number 8 is housing. And housing is certainly a big part of any recovery, but we've had a bit of a slow recovery, haven't we?
It's true. I suppose housing would have been number 1 some years ago, right? As an issue. Yeah. Now, fortunately, the issue is moving in the other direction. How does the recovery in housing affect the economy generally, and then how does that affect commercial real estate in its turn? The revival in housing construction is a really important element. It means that some of the glut of housing has been taken off the market. We need to produce new units. And for single-family housing, every time we create a new unit, we create 3 new jobs across the economy.
Yeah, and that's interesting. 3 new jobs for each home.
For every single-family home, 1.2 jobs for every multifamily unit. So if you add 150,000 units, which is the growth that we're expecting to see this year, that's 450,000 extra jobs.
And that those job growth, that's just not in the guys swinging the hammers, right? That runs down the line.
No, that's true. The multiplier effect is both upstream from the production of the housing. The mortgage bankers that are funding, the land planners and the architects that are involved in doing it, and the developers themselves, of course. And then downstream, when you build a new house, it has to be furnished. So. Appliance manufacturers, furniture manufacturers, carpet, textiles, that all comes into the picture. So those jobs flow across the entire economy, and not just in the locality where the house is produced.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. When I bought my last new home, my wife said, well, what's the budget for new furniture and decor? I said, can't we just bring our old crap?
And the answer was no. Is that correct?
That's right. It was no. No, you got to have new stuff for the new house, right? And that makes the economy come back.
It does. So the thing about many of these professions, of course, they suffered in the downturn. There were contractions, across construction, across mortgage brokerage, across architecture and land planning. So people have, in those fields, really had to draw down their savings. So as new income comes into them, that's going to get spent. Mm-hmm. So one way that housing affects things is not only in the wholesale production of furniture and appliances, but it's going to be affecting retailing as those incomes begin to be spent in local economies.
Right, and there's a lot more ahead of us, right? I mean, we're not back to the new normal, well, maybe a new normal, but we're not back to the level we were.
Well, no. The long-term average for housing production is 1.4 million units. We hope to get, to maybe 1.1 this year. So there's still a lot to go. So, will we really be producing the kinds of housing that we produced, let's say, in the 70s, right, when the baby boom was entering the housing market? Well, the millennial generation is as large as the baby boomers. As a percentage of the population, it's not as large, but in absolute numbers, it's equal in size to the baby boom. Well, that is an enormous amount of housing demand as these kids get to the point where they are first going to become renters and then become homeowners in their turn.
Right. So you don't think the the millennials are afraid to buy homes when they saw their parents lose theirs?
I don't. Actually, the ambitions of the millennials are not that far apart from the ambitions of their parents. In terms of wanting to have good quality of life and housing, and even raising a family. The interesting thing is where they may choose to do that may be different, because as cities have improved their own quality of life, and the older suburbs have entered a period of decline, the migration of people out of cities into suburbs as they reach childbearing age and child rearing age, that momentum is slowly shifting in favor of the cities.
Yeah, that's true. We sell all types of properties around the southeast here at our shop, and the biggest change we've seen is in land. I mean, last year, the landscape, if you will, of land sales just really changed. The demand just really increased a lot. And, let's talk about number 7. We're down to number 7 now with capital markets.
Okay. Well, follow the money. Wasn't that what we were advised to do? The good news for real estate is that there is absolutely no shortage of capital, and that there is an abundant diversity of sources of capital. International capital is very strong. Private equity is being compiled, and it's very different from the syndication equity of the 1980s. Certainly the public markets, the REIT market and the CMBS market, is beginning to accelerate, and you find many high net worth individuals, both here and abroad, investing in real estate. Someone said to me recently, once you have $1 billion, your motive is to keep the $1 billion, not necessarily add the next 1 or 2 million. So it's become less about yield and more about conservation of capital, particularly if you're coming from a part of the world where you need to move your capital to a safe place.
Right, and that's really affected the commercial real estate investment market in a big way. The core assets, almost any property, even if it's a B asset in a secondary city, if it's strongly leased with good tenants, there's a huge demand out there right now.
Yes, there is. You think of how we've been worrying about our trade balance with China, and now we're seeing a lot of that Chinese capital come right back into U.S. real estate the way it did with the Japanese in the 1980s. I'll give you 2 examples in New York City. A $500 million loan on 1 building by the Bank of China. $500 million. And that's even smaller than what's been contributed by Greenland Holdings, a Chinese semi-government agency, that's taken a 70% equity stake in the Atlantic Yards development in Brooklyn, New York, my hometown. Well, Atlantic Yards is a $7 billion development project. So 70% of that was a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. And speaking of a lot of money, what about the loans maturing in the next 3 years? These loans that were put on, say, 10 years prior, they're going to be coming due. What do you expect to see there?
There was a tremendous amount of fear about this tsunami of refinancing in the CMBS market, because the quality of the lending was considered to be weak, and the ratings of the lending inappropriate. And that when it came time to refinance those loans, the buildings would not be at the values that they were when the loans were originally put into place. And that certainly was true in 2010 and 2011, when the forecast were that this was going to be a catastrophe for the industry. But this is about $360 billion worth of refi needs. CMBS issuance last year was about $100 billion. It's going to be about $125 this year. So it now looks like we can actually fund that. And of course, as commercial real estate prices have crept back up, certainly have soared back up in the 24-hour cities.
Yeah.
A lot of these loans can be safely refied.
Yeah, and there's a lot of capital out there. That's the good news. This is a Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back.
The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by Florida International University. With FIU's Fast Track system, you can earn your master's in real estate in just 10 months without interrupting your career. Visit FIUonline.com to learn more. That's FIUonline.com.
Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull, and I'm here with Hugh Kelly in Studio One. We're talking about the Counselor of Real Estate's top 10 issues affecting real estate. And we're at a big one here. We're at number 6, and it's not big because it's number 6. It's big because it's water.
Yes, and who would have thought it, right?
Yeah.
But I was having lunch over the last weekend with my old college roommate, and he's from California, and he saw the list, and he said, "Number 6, water should be number 1."
Yeah. What can we do without water?
And if you are west of the 100th meridian, you've been in a 14-year drought. If you're reliant on Colorado River water, as Phoenix is, as California is, if you're reliant on Lake Mead, you're in serious trouble. How do you grow a city if you don't have enough water?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have a huge impact on the economic growth of these areas, isn't it?
And that's yes. You think about our energy, how much we depend upon fracking for energy. Well, that's short for hydraulic fracturing. You're pumping water into the ground. So what is the alternative use for that water? To grow crops, to provide water to cities, and then stretch it out to the world, because if water is a problem in the U.S., is an even larger problem around the world. 3 million people die every year because of inadequate or dirty water. And that's a fixable problem. 2 billion people today have inadequate, healthy water supplies around the world. So that really hinders world economic growth. So it is a major thing. It impacts real estate in a series of steps, but it's there, and we need to think about it. We haven't invested here in the U.S. in the infrastructure that we need to do. I mean, there's no reason why we should have water surpluses in one part of the country and tremendous water deficiencies elsewhere, but we've not invested in the infrastructure to rectify, to correct that imbalance. You think of how we grew out of the Great Depression, right? With projects like the Tennessee Valley Authority, which kind of tamed the rivers of the South and then electrified the whole rural South, which developed projects like the Hoover Dam to create Lake Mead and open up the West. This time we had a tremendous opportunity and kind of wasted it by not giving the attention to stimulating infrastructure development. That's something we can always correct, but we don't seem to have the political will to do that.
What should we think about as a real estate investor or user or advisor related to investing and using real estate with this possible water shortage looming?
Well, I think you first need to see whether you can work with what you have, because the idea that you may need to rely on the existing supply that you have and not get new supplies is very important. So some of the green buildings that actually do that are very efficient in recycling gray water into use within the building for heating, ventilating, and air conditioning purposes, for example. That's something that you can do. You can upgrade your systems and take what is waste now and turn it into something that's productive.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
That's a good point. We had a show on environmental issues the other day, and the environmental engineers said a lot more people are checking the water table under the properties they're buying because, he said, because they might need it one day.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, let's get to number 5, globalization. It's a small world after all, right?
It is, and it's a big example of how you should not take trends and extrapolate them indefinitely into the future, because the thought was that globalization was going to be a permanent negative for U.S. jobs, that we were going to take all of our low-wage jobs and they were going to go out to Indonesia and Bangladesh and elsewhere. And as it turns out, that has not necessarily been the case. We're having increasing onshoring of manufacturing for the reasons we talked about before, and we have talk about infrastructure. This massive expansion of the Panama Canal that's going to reshape global supply chains, that's going to open up industrial distribution markets along the East Coast as the new Panamax ships go through. And it's going to require, again, a lot of infrastructure work here within the United States to accommodate that.
Right. And you also have a lot of foreign investors now that are investing in the U.S., right?
The capital flows into the U.S., in particular into commercial real estate, are enormous, and that helps diversifies our pool of capital. So we're not totally dependent upon banks and insurance companies to fund our projects, but we can turn to offshore sources.
Yeah, that's great. And we see foreign investors buying second homes and buying land and buying in commercial properties. Well, we'll take a short break. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll have more on the top 10 issues affecting real estate right after this. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by France Media. France Media provides exposure to the world of commercial real estate. Visit francemediainc.com or call 404-832-8262. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm here with Hugh Kelly in Studio One. We're talking about the 10 factors affecting real estate in the U.S. and probably really around the world. And number 4 is healthcare. The baby boomers, I hear they're all aging. Of course, not us, right? But we hear they're all aging. Then we have healthcare reform. Tell us what's going on. How's healthcare affecting real estate?
Well, it's a use question and a development question. As you get several million more people being covered in terms of healthcare, obviously the demand side for healthcare is growing. Meanwhile, you're having this whole consolidation process occurring in the healthcare providers, particularly in the hospitals. So you're seeing things on the development side that are pretty robust. About $40 billion in construction in the healthcare field. That's a lot of money. But even more than that is the transformation of retail spaces, for example, as more and more healthcare is delivered close to where the people live. So you're seeing tenants that used to be not too desired in shopping malls, things like medical facilities, all of a sudden being highly desired. In my hometown in Brooklyn, for example, there's this storefront right across the street from the government buildings in Central Courts. And it used to be a combination of Kentucky Fried Chicken and Dunkin' Donuts and so on. Now it's a point of service healthcare provided with one of the big New York City hospitals.
Yeah, that's great. So now I can go get my knee fixed and go to the bar right afterwards, right?
There you go.
And how much more construction do you expect to see in healthcare related construction?
Well, it's going to ramp up, because this trend of people seeking the services for healthcare is not going to turn the economy around on a dime. But as you have, again, millions of people who didn't have the financial ability for health care, going to reduce a bit of the emergency room use, and then that's going to be going out into more retail type healthcare facilities. So I would say, for example, in industrial parks, that you're going to begin to see some of these uses crop up, because those buildings are perfect. They're very adaptable buildings, and it's going to be where the population exists. So look for highly dense urban areas as the places where you're going to see not only retail level healthcare, but the kind of specialized healthcare where you need a concentration of patients. So healthcare becomes an export industry for some cities. Houston is a great example of that. Think of the Texas Medical Center. Think of New York's world-class hospitals. Think of what Northwestern Hospital, Northwestern University Hospital in Chicago does for its whole surrounding area. It's not just servicing Chicagoans, but people coming there. The Mayo Clinic.
Yeah, those are good points. And you also have the adaptive reuse part of that demand, where we can use retail and those kind of buildings for medical use. We had a building that we took over an assignment that was a large freestanding retail building in a major city in Alabama, and it wasn't leasing. Well, we said, let's go to healthcare. We got a great healthcare tenant in there. So I think it is a helping commercial real estate.
Sure. I think in Alabama, the University of Birmingham's Medical Center is a regional facility, and very high quality neuroscience there.
Yeah. Well, let's get to number 3. That's a real big one. The millennials, right? I like to call
your kids and mine.
That's right. The I kids, right? The iPhone, the iPad, the I want it now, right?
The thing about the millennials is, of course, there are as many millennials as there are baby boomers, and so the baby boomers really charted the course for the economy for our lifetime. We did, right? And our children can
still impacting healthcare.
Well, that's true, but in unexpected ways. Unexpected ways, because instead of us at 65 or 70 going to resort and retirement communities and playing golf, we're healthier longer, we're working longer, we're productive longer. And that means that we've deferred some of those healthcare needs, but they're going to come. For the millennials, the question, there are a couple. What kind of jobs are they going to have? How are they going to pay off their student loans? $1 trillion in student loan debt. That's a big number. And then as they begin to establish themselves, how are they? This is the creative class generation. This is the technologically sophisticated generation. What are they going to do to transform our economy? We don't know that yet, but we do know that they like to be in edgy urban environments. They like to live kind of in a writ large version of Seinfeld and Friends, right? And they're not as prone to exit the city, provided the city can provide good quality of life for them. But how does that affect real estate? I get the big story. Where I am is, of course, Google's purchase of the old Port Authority headquarters building on 8th Avenue in the meatpacking district of New York, Chelsea. Google paid $2 billion for one building. Why? Because it's on the subway lines that serve the edgy, creative class, hipster neighborhoods, which is where their talent pool is.
Right, and it's going to affect the office market too. I mean, you see a lot more efficiency and benching and things that they say the millennials are okay with,
and less rigor in 9-to-5 jobs.
Right.
Time doesn't mean the same thing to this generation as time meant to our generation.
All right, we'll have more right after this break. This is the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. We'll be right back. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you in part by your friends at Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, visit bullrealty.com or call 800-408-BULL. Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is the Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm here with Hugh Kelly in Studio One. We're talking about the Counselors of Real Estate, top 10 issues affecting commercial real estate. And number 2 is a real big one, right? I think everyone knows about this one, but it's probably one of the bigger ones, and that's jobs.
Jobs. We lost so many jobs in the recession, 8 million plus, and we've just gained back what we lost. We're growing at about 250,000 jobs a month now. That's sustainable and probably is going to grow as housing improves. So that's the good news. Difficulties, of course, There are whole segments of the economy. The millennials are one of them, where unemployment is much higher than the 6.1% unemployment rate that's the official rate suggests, and the quality of the jobs have changed. So I think real estate has an interesting and very positive challenge ahead of it. To me, we talk a lot about income inequality across the country, and it's a serious problem. But income mobility is an equally serious problem. How do you get someone who can start in a low-end job that's not a dead-end job? Mm-hmm. So I think real estate's a great place to tackle that. And I'd like to see us do that.
And if you're investing in real estate, it's a good thing to follow the jobs and where the jobs are going to be. Are there any certain areas geographically or sectors or age ranges you think will see more job improvement?
It's funny. You get a very, very different picture of the country if you look at absolute numbers of jobs and at percentage growth. Percentage growth is all in the energy belt and in the South. Absolute job growth is all in the big cities. And I'll just use my own city, New York and Dallas as a point of comparison. Mm-hmm. Since the year 2000, New York City has grown 1.3 million in population. Wow. And has commensurate job growth to that. It's exceeded the country in job growth, percentage-wise. Dallas' entire population as a city is 1.2 million. So which of the two is the growth city?
New York?
And you wouldn't think that, would you?
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get to number one, energy. Talk to us about energy. We need it, don't we?
You and I are old enough to remember the old Gomer Pyle show, right?
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, surprise. Who would have thought 10 years ago that we would produce more petroleum in the United States than we import? But that is the case. Who would have thought that we would be producing national gas so that we could be selling that at 1/5 the world price of Europe and Asia? So that's a real game changer for the U.S. economy. Of course, it confronts us with choices. Mm-hmm. Are we going to take that production of an old fuel source and try to exploit that as much as we can at the expense of developing new and cleaner sources of energy? And different states have taken different positions. For example, South Dakota's created 27,000 jobs because of fracking. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania, another 30 or 1,000 jobs or so. That's a lot of jobs for states that really need it. Massachusetts, on the other hand, over the course of the last 5 years, has created about 80,000 jobs in alternative energy sources. So it's not a case of one size fits all. But how do you fit the resources and the needs of your local place to serve the energy needs? I was just over in Paris speaking at a conference there, and we went out to an exhibit called the Solar Decathlon, which was 10 universities around the world. Each one had a group of students to build a house that was net energy positive. That is to say that it gives off more energy to the grid than it takes in. I think that's the wave of the future.
That's what we need. Hugh Kelly, thanks for joining us today.
There you go.
For more information from Hugh, visit cre.org. Join us next week. We'll have a show on the multifamily industry, certainly a hot one. Thanks for joining us today. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh. And join us for the Commercial Real Estate Show. The Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Florida International University and Bull Realty Commercial Brokerage, a great place to do business. For more information on these companies or to access additional podcasts, videos, or blogs, visit commercialrealestateshow.com.